I knew the moment she leaned toward me with that half-smile, half-snarl expression on her face that something bad was coming. But even then, I wasn't prepared for the venom that rolled off her tongue in front of nearly 200 wedding guests. "That's not a mother," she hissed loudly enough for the nearby tables to hear. "That's a disaster in a dress." And she didn't just say it with malice. She said it like she had been rehearsing it, like she had been waiting for the perfect moment to publicly humiliate me. For a second, I froze, stunned, blinking at her like I had misheard, like this couldn't be happening at my own son's wedding of all places. But she stared at me with so much smug satisfaction that I knew she meant every disgusting word. And the worst part, my son, my own flesh and blood, heard her. But instead of defending me, he just lowered his head like he was embarrassed that I even existed. So here's what I need to ask you right now, before I dive into the rest of this nightmare. Was I wrong for what I did afterward? Because I'll be honest, I reached a point where I couldn't stay silent anymore. I couldn't just swallow the humiliation she had been feeding me for months. You tell me if you think I went too far. Because at this point, after everything, I genuinely can't tell if I was standing up for myself or if I finally snapped now. Before I get into how everything spiraled into a full-blown disaster on the most important day of my son's life, let me take you back to where all of this began, because trust me, this wasn't a one-time insult. This was the final punch after months of small cuts, quiet digs, and a twisted game of control that I didn't sign up for. My name is Marianne. I raised my son, Daniel, as a single mother after his father passed away in a car accident when Daniel was only 8 years old. Those were some of the hardest years of my life, financially, emotionally, mentally, but Daniel was my anchor, my reason, my purpose. I worked 2 jobs for most of his childhood, saved every penny I could, and I never complained because I wanted him to have opportunities I never had. And for a long time, it felt like it was worth it. He grew up to be kind, brilliant, and genuinely loving. We had an incredibly close bond until he met her family. Her name was Lily, and I want to make something clear before I go any further. This story is not about hating her. She's a sweet girl truly, and she loved my son with her entire heart. But her mother is a different creature entirely. Her name is Vivienne, and the first time I met her, I could feel my stomach twist into a knot that never quite loosened again. She walked into the restaurant where we planned to have dinner. Expensive, shiny, cold, and she gave me this smile that didn't reach her eyes. She looked me up and down like she was scanning my price tag and didn't like the number she found. And I remember thinking, okay, maybe she's just one of those rich, uptight types. I can deal with that. But I didn't know then what she was capable of. From the beginning, she treated me like something she had scraped off her shoe. If I made a comment during a conversation, she would speak over me. If I complimented Lily, she would redirect the conversation to something she had done for her daughter. If I talked about Daniel's accomplishments, she would belittle them in these subtle, passive, aggressive ways, as if everything I had done for him was barely adequate. And honestly, I tried so hard to brush it off. I reminded myself that people come with different personalities, different communication styles. I thought maybe she was just insecure, or maybe she felt threatened by me for some reason. But every time I tried to understand her, she showed me more clearly that she didn't want understanding, she wanted dominance. Things escalated when the wedding planning began. Oh, I should have braced myself, because that's when she really sank her claws into everything. She insisted that the wedding be held at an extravagant venue her friend owned, even though it was far outside the budget that Daniel and Lily had agreed on. She started making decisions without consulting anyone. Table settings, food menus, decorations, even down to the font style on the invitations. She acted like this event was her personal showcase, like her daughter getting married was merely a backdrop. And every time I tried to offer support or give a suggestion, she shut me down with that tight-lipped, condescending tone. Well, Marianne, some of us understand how these things work. Or, let the professionals handle this, dear. Or the worst one, this isn't really your area. My area, lady. I raised the groom. But I stayed quiet. For months. I stayed quiet because all I wanted was for my son to be happy. I didn't want to make waves, didn't want to cause stress, didn't want him to look back on his wedding and associate it with tension. So I swallowed my pride, smiled when she dismissed me, nodded when she made choices behind everyone's back, and endured it every single week. But the thing about people like her, when you don't fight back, they assume they can push even harder. Which brings me to the dress incident, the one that really broke me. I had spent weeks searching for the perfect dress for the wedding. I wanted something elegant, something flattering, something that made me feel confident after years of not really doing anything for myself. I finally found one. Navy blue, beaded, flowy, classy, but not attention-stealing. It was perfect. I showed Daniel a picture and he said, "You look beautiful, Mom." And for the first time during this whole process, I felt genuinely excited. So when Vivienne saw it, I should have known she wouldn't like anything that came from me. We were at a small wedding-related gathering, and she approached me with this look of Fawkes concern. "Marianne, that dress," she sighed dramatically, placing her fingers on her forehead like she was experiencing physical pain just thinking about it. "It's not appropriate." I blinked. "Appropriate how?" She smiled sweetly, sweet in the way poison looks sweet before it hits your system. "It's just a bit too flashy, too youthful. The groom's mother should aim for dignity." And right then I understood exactly what she meant. She wanted me to look dull, forgettable, background noise, something that wouldn't stand near her as she strutted around in her $1,000 gown. "I already bought it," I said quietly. "Daniel likes it." And she smirked. "Daniel is too kind to tell you the truth, dear." That night I cried in my car before driving home. I'm not ashamed to admit it. Months of her insults had been piling up, but that one. That jab at how I looked, how I presented myself. It felt like a punch straight to the gut. I didn't say anything to Daniel because he already had so much on his plate. But little did I know, the real blow was coming on the actual day of the wedding. Fast forward to the wedding morning. The venue was stunning, cold and extravagant, very much her style, but admittedly beautiful. Guests were arriving, photographers were buzzing around, Lily looked breathtaking, and Daniel looked nervous and excited. I tried to stay out of the way, just helping where I could, offering smiles and calming words. I wore my dress. Yes, the same navy blue one, and for the first time in a long time, I felt good about myself. Until she saw me. Vivienne's eyes widened when she spotted me across the room, not in admiration, not in surprise, but in fury. She beelined toward me, her heels clicking like gunshots across the floor. She grabbed my arm, not enough to hurt, but enough to remind me she thought she had the right to, and whispered harshly, "I thought we discussed your dress." I gently pulled my arm back. "We didn't discuss anything," I said. "You tried to dictate it, and I didn't agree." Her eyes narrowed. "You're embarrassing, Daniel." And that right there was the moment something inside me cracked. I stared at her, stunned. "I'm embarrassing him. For wearing a dress." She crossed her arms. "For pretending you belong in a place like this." I walked away before I said something I would regret, but her words echoed in my head all day long. Then came the cocktail hour, the moment that set the entire disaster into motion. Everyone was mingling, laughing, talking. I was standing near a group of Daniel's coworkers when Vivienne approached, pretending to be in a cheerful mood. She squeezed my shoulder and said loudly, "Oh, Marianne, don't take offense. But when I saw your dress, I almost mistook you for one of the waitstaff." A couple of people gave awkward laughs, not sure if it was supposed to be a joke, while others looked away, clearly uncomfortable. My face burned. I wanted to disappear. I swallowed hard and forced a tight smile, but she wasn't done. She leaned in closer, the fake smile never leaving her face, and whispered the line I will never forget. "That's not a mother," she growled. "That's a disaster in a dress." And Daniel, my son, standing only a few feet away, looked at me, then looked at her, and then looked away like he didn't want to get involved. Like he didn't want to choose the embarrassing side. That was the exact moment I realized something had shifted. Something deep. Something painful. And I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. But before I tell you what I did next, before I explain how I responded, how the night exploded, how secrets came out and lives got shaken, I want to ask you again. What would you have done if someone humiliated you like that at your own son's wedding? If someone treated you like you were nothing in front of the people you love most? Because that's the moment I reached my breaking point, and I made a choice I can't take back. So pause and think. Would you have kept quiet? Or would you have finally stood up for yourself? Because what happened next is where everything truly went downhill. I wish I could tell you that I calmly pulled Vivienne aside and asked her to stop, that I handled everything with grace and maturity. But that would be a lie. The truth is, when she called me a disaster in a dress, something inside me that had been stretched thin for months suddenly snapped clean in half. Not the sharp, angry kind of snap, more like the quiet kind that changes the way you breathe. I stood there surrounded by guests pretending not to hear, pretending to be busy with their drinks, and I felt this strange numbness wash over me. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, feel my pulse thumping in my neck, but the rest of the room became muffled, blurry, like I was watching everything through a layer of glass. I looked at Daniel, my son, my only child, my pride, and instead of seeing comfort or support in his eyes, I saw hesitance. I saw a man caught between two worlds. And in that moment, I understood something painful. Whatever influence Vivian had over him, it was stronger than the bond I had built for decades. For a few seconds I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just stood there trying not to crumble. But then she did something that pushed everything over the edge. She laughed. A small, satisfied laugh, the kind of sound a person makes when they know they've won. And I realized I had two choices: stay silent and let her destroy me piece by piece, or finally show her I wasn't the weak, pitiful woman she thought I was. So I chose the second option. I turned to face her fully, and before I even realized what I was doing, my voice, steady but trembling with emotion, left my mouth. "Vivienne," I said, loud enough that the group around us fell silent. "Do you ever get tired?" She blinked, thrown off. "Tired?" she repeated. "Off what?" I looked her straight in the eyes. "Off being cruel." You could practically hear the air being sucked out of the room. A few people shifted uncomfortably. Someone coughed. Vivian gave me a stiff, brittle smile. "Oh please, Marianne, don't be dramatic. I'm just being honest." "Someone has to be?" That's when something inside my chest ignited. Not rage, not hatred, but something raw. A fierce kind of clarity. "No," I said quietly. "You're not being honest. You're being a bully. And you've been one from the moment I met you." She scoffed, rolling her eyes as if I were throwing some childish tantrum. "This is exactly what I'm talking about," she said to the people around her. So emotional, so unstable, and that's when Daniel stepped closer. For a moment, I thought, hoped, he would finally defend me. But he didn't. He barely said my name. "Mom, maybe we shouldn't do this right now," he whispered, like I was the one causing the scene. Something inside me shattered so quietly I don't think anyone else noticed, but I did. I felt it break. All the years I worked myself to exhaustion. All the birthdays I planned alone. All the nights I stayed awake during his fevers, during his heartbreaks, during school stress, during college applications. All the sacrifices, all the love, all the tears. And now here he was, standing with his head lowered like he wished I could just disappear for the night. Like I was the inconvenience. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I walked away. Not out of fear. Not out of shame. But because I knew that if I stayed there, in that moment, surrounded by their judgment, something unforgivable would leave my mouth. I slipped out of the crowd and headed toward a quiet corner behind one of the decorative pillars, where the noise of the wedding doled into a distant hum. I felt tears burning the back of my eyes, but I swallowed them down. I didn't want to cry, not yet. I just needed space. I needed air. But I didn't get it. Not even 2 minutes had passed when Lily found me, her face pale with worry. "Marianne, what happened?" "My mom is saying you yelled at her." Hearing that nearly made me laugh. Darkly, bitterly. "Yelled," I repeated. "Sweetheart," I barely raised my voice. She softened, resting a hand on my arm. "I knew something was wrong. I saw the look on your face when she came over earlier." She said something, didn't she? I hesitated, because the last thing I wanted was to ruin Lily's wedding day. But she squeezed my hand. "Please tell me." So I told her. Not everything, not the months of small humiliations, but the dress comment, the waitress comment, and finally the disaster in a dress insult. And the moment I said it, Lily's jaw clenched so tight I could see her teeth grinding. "She said that?" she whispered, horror and anger mixing in her voice. I nodded. She looked like she was about to storm off to confront her mother, but I caught her wrist gently. "No," I said. "Not today. This is your day. Let's not make this worse." But she shook her head. "She's been doing this for weeks. I've seen how she talks to you when she thinks no one's looking. She treats you like you're beneath her, and I'm sick of it." For the first time all day, I felt a spark of warmth. Someone was finally on my side. "Thank you," I whispered. "But not today, okay? The last thing Daniel needs is more stress." She swallowed hard, fighting back tears of her own. "I'll talk to him," she said. "He needs to understand how wrong this is." And she walked away before I could stop her. I leaned against the wall, closing my eyes for just a moment, trying to gather myself. But the universe wasn't done with me yet. I suddenly heard hushed voices from around the corner. Female voices. But their tone made me freeze in place. They weren't guests. They weren't gossiping. They were whispering with purpose. I recognized one of them immediately. Vivienne, and the other, her sister. The one who had flown in from the West Coast, who barely spoke to anyone the whole night. I told you she would embarrass herself, Vivienne said sharply. Honestly, I can't believe Daniel ended up with a mother like that. No wonder he clings to us. She probably smothered him growing up. My nails dug into my palm so hard it hurt. Another voice, her sister's, replied, You sure it's a good idea to provoke her? She seemed on edge. Vivienne scoffed. Please, women like her crumble, and I want her too. I want Daniel to see the difference between our families tonight. I want him to see who he should be aligning himself with. After all, once they have kids, I'm not letting that woman near them unsupervised. My entire body went cold. That's when it hit me this wasn't just about the wedding. She wanted long-term control. She wanted to push me out of Daniel's life completely. And maybe out of his future children's lives too. And suddenly, my hurt turned into something else. Fear. Fear of losing my son entirely. Fear of watching him drift away until I no longer recognized the man I raised. Fear that Vivienne was poisoning the well so slowly he didn't even realize he was drinking from it. And that fear, that's what broke me. I stepped around the corner and faced both of them. They startled, their eyes widening like girls caught torching something behind the school. Vivienne recovered first, straightening her shoulders. Eavesdropping now, she said with fox confidence. Classy, but for once her smirk didn't intimidate me, it fueled me. I wasn't eavesdropping, I said. You were speaking about me loudly enough for anyone to hear. Her sister opened her mouth as if to intervene, but Vivienne lifted a hand to silence her. Marianne, she sighed. I understand you're sensitive. No, I interrupted. You don't understand anything. She blinked, thrown off by my tone. I took a breath. You've been looking down on me since the moment you met me. You've insulted me, humiliated me, dismissed me, and tried to make me feel like I don't belong. But let me make something clear. I raised Daniel. I sacrificed for him. I built his life with my bare hands while you threw money and insults at your daughter. Don't you ever think you get to compare our families? Her face went red, an ugly, blotchy red. How dare you, she sputtered. How dare I? I stepped forward. How dare you talk about keeping me away from my future grandchildren? How dare you try to manipulate my son into pushing me out of his life? What kind of twisted mother does that? Her sister looked horrified, glancing between us. Vivienne's eyes darted around nervously, probably worried someone had overheard. You need to calm down, she hissed. You're making a scene? You made the scene? I said. I'm just finishing it. That's when Daniel appeared. Of course. Perfect timing. He rushed over with panic in his eyes. Mom, what's going on? Why are you yelling? I stared at him, my heart aching. Ask her, I said quietly. Vivienne immediately gasped like she was the victim. Daniel, she attacked me out of nowhere. Attacked. I repeated, incredulous. You want to talk about attacks? Daniel rubbed his forehead. Mom, please. This is Lily's day. Can we talk about this later? That sentence. It was the final blow. Letter, I whispered. After your mother-in-law destroys me completely. After she twists the story so much that you won't even recognize the truth. His silence told me everything I needed to know. And then Lily appeared behind him. She had heard everything, every word. Mom, she said sharply to Vivienne, what did you say about keeping her away from our kids? Vivienne's face drained of color instantly. Lily, sweetheart, that was taken out of context. I don't think it was, Lily said. Because this isn't the first time you've talked like this. Daniel turned stunned. What? What do you mean? Lily took a shaky breath. I didn't want to tell you on our wedding day, but she told me last month that Marianne was too unstable to babysit any future children. She said we needed to distance ourselves. Daniel stared at his mother-in-law like he was seeing her for the first time. Vivienne panicked, truly panicked. She reached for his arm. Daniel, sweetheart, listen to me. He pulled away. Why would you say that? He demanded. She stuttered, searching for an excuse. I worry. About what? About my mom, the woman who raised me alone, the woman who gave up everything for me. His voice rose. People started noticing, heads turned. Cameras pointed. Guests whispered. And suddenly, this wasn't a quiet argument in a corner anymore. It was a spectacle right in the middle of the wedding venue. Vivienne's worst nightmare. She snapped. I west to our mayor, she screamed. The room went silent. I felt my legs weaken. Daniel stared at her in disbelief. Save me, he repeated. From my own mother? Vivienne's voice trembled, her mask cracking. She's not like us. She's emotional, she's messy. She's from that background. That was it. That was the moment Daniel's face changed completely. He lowered his voice, but the fury in it rippled across the room. "Mum," he whispered, coming toward me. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And I wanted to hug him. I wanted to fall into his arms and forgive him and pretend none of this happened, but I couldn't, not yet. Lily stepped beside me and slipped her hand into mine. "You don't deserve this," she whispered. "You never have." Vivienne stood frozen, humiliated, pale, trembling. Her sister tried to guide her away, but she shook her off, her eyes unfocused and wild. "This is all your fault," she hissed at me. "You ruined my daughter's wedding." But Lily snapped in a voice I had never heard from her. "You ruined my wedding, not her?" Daniel nodded. "You owe my mom an apology." Vivienne's jaw clenched. For a moment it looked like she would explode again. But then something shifted, fear, shame, exposure, whatever it was, and she spun around and stormed out of the hall, heels clacking violently as guests stepped out of her way. Silence, then whispers, then the music abruptly cut. Then someone, somewhere muttered, "Good riddance." My hands were shaking, my chest was tight. Daniel embraced me, his shoulders shaking with guilt. "Mom, I'm sorry I didn't defend you earlier." "I see that now. I'm so sorry." And I finally let myself cry, just a little, enough to release the pressure in my heart. "I know," I whispered. "You were caught in the middle." Lily hugged me too. "Your family," she said, "real family. We're not letting her push you out, ever." For the next hour, the wedding was chaotic. People were confused. Some were uncomfortable. A few guests left early because of the drama. But here's the thing, once Vivienne was gone, the atmosphere actually lifted. Lauder returned, music played again, people danced. For the first time that day, I saw Daniel and Lily genuinely smile. I sat at my table watching them dance, thinking the worst was behind us. But I was wrong. Because while the wedding may have survived that night, the aftermath, well, that was a storm all on its own, and that storm hit just 48 hours later.